I'll take a little quick gavel and we'll get this meeting started. I think I am up for the prayer and the pledge, and y'all are all welcome to stand now or stand when we start the pledge. Oh, here's please. Dear Lord, we just thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you for this this beautiful city that we all get to live in. We like to thank you for this opportunity tonight to discuss matters that relate to this airport. And we ask you that you all give us open minds and allow us to do what is best for the city, and always keep the city in your best work in hand and in our minds. Forgive us our sins and bless this food now to tonight to our bodies. Christ, let me pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, Chad, do we have any visitors or any public comment tonight?
No comments, but we do have some visitors here. If Vincent, you'd like to introduce.
Sure. So as part of our addition and growing large family, we have Joe Nye. We poached Joe from the FAA out of the Montana Airports District office up there. He and his family have since relocated to warmer climates. And he's kind of our sneak peek into the workings of the FAA. He's already kind of been helping us out with some of that. So you'll be seeing him from time to time. And we're keeping growing the aviation group and let's serve y'all.
Thank you. Joe, glad to have you aboard with the barge.
Thank you.
All right, we're looking for approval of the May 19th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? Approval? Have a motion and a second. Roll, please.
Shelby Hutton,
Aye.
Shannon Lowry,
Aye.
Paul Myers.
Aye.
Drew Shelley. Aye. Steve Walton.
Thank you. All right, Chad, you want to start with item number 4?
Yes, so we are moving forward with a construction of a hangar. We're working with the city council, the mayor, to move forward. And this is, we've kind of focused in on the area that is west of the TDK hangar, as you can see there in the picture. And you know, as part of our construction that'll be going on this summer, and Benson, if you could maybe give us an update on where we are with utility, that bid process.
Cities around, we're working to get it out for bid at this month.
I think we have a bid meeting coming up next week here or the following week to introduce that to interested contractors. So then that'll give them probably month of July. So we'll get contracts in hand probably in August and start work. I don't believe it's a 60-day or something. It's like a really short.
turn on it. So hopefully we're getting all the rain squeezed out of the sky now. And we will have a dry August.
Yeah, which is
Get this done.
typical for what we do here. So this will be opening up this area as we create the pad in this area and create elevations for that taxiway and getting the utilities into this area. And I'll be talking about a interested party that we have after this, but in the meantime, we want to get the work authorization with barge going. And this is for quite a large hangar. It's 150 by 100 feet with a 24-foot clear door. So very similar to the size of a door that you see at the TDK hangar. This gets you that higher level of corporate jet in case you get to any of those higher tail aircraft, and a 3,000 square foot office space there, and along with the proposed auto parking. This is what we're estimating all total is just under the $5 million mark for this construction here. And so based on that, this is the proposal that Barge has put together for us. It's a total of $298,883, and this gets us through design, engineering, and then into bid process, which will be they'll be assisting the city in that process. So we're looking at a quick turnaround on this. We'd like to have this hangar up and going by next summer, next year at this time. So we got a tight schedule. But that is the proposed fee there. If you have any questions, Ryan or I can, or Benson or I can answer them for you.
Go back to your map one time, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Ted.
sir.
So a question that I have, Vincent, are you gonna, well, correct me if I'm wrong, seems like there's a sewer manhole just kind of lying to the north of that proposed taxiway, is that right?
There's a
Somewhere
water
right in
line.
there, yes.
There are utilities in here, and we are staying off of those utilities.
And so how are you gonna feed the sewer and the water, kind of take your hand and motion, how are you gonna feed the proposed building?
The buildings will be from the backside along the roadside is where all the utilities will come in and then turn and they'll connect as a loop.
And in this proposal, are you gonna do anything for the pad, for the future hangar?
That's under the existing contract that we're bidding now. So it's gonna take care of the whole site. This will be to build the taxiway stub, the entire apron, and the building, and then half the parking lot. So when you get ready to build the next hangar, all you'll have is the hangar building and then some parking lot expansion.
The phase that you've got going now, have you ever let that bid? The initial phase that we had to get all this
No,
started,
It's the one we were just talking about, that it should be bid in the next 30.
included in that,
Yeah,
okay.
That's correct. And it goes down to the T hangar and over into that
Okay.
area.
Overview that shows where this is in relation to that other piece?
Yeah, let me get that real quick.
Have y'all talked at all about, style of that, kind of the office area?
No, so basically the office is going to be a shell. It's going to have some exterior, it's not just going to be metal. It'll have some exterior block, kind of match in TDK. And then the build out will be up to the client.
So kind of have three different little projects going on here all at the same time. And so this is for your orientation there. We're looking at this area right there. There's the TDK.
Got it. Okay, I was
So-
turned around.
Yeah, so we're looking at, these colors refer to phases. So we're looking at this area, this area, this area. It's all being part of phase one with the utilities and sewer lines, all that is going in. And pad elevations. So to get to this is gonna be already kind of taken care of as far as the initial site work and elevation. Further phases, what this document is gonna do is give us numbers as to the cost of the different phases. So as we put it in our CIP.
Yes, so we're working right now on cost estimate for payment in these different ones. So you guys will be able to say, hey, as we start working south, basically depending on what MTSU decides to do, where they go, that could be a shift of going back to the 5 depending on what, there's a lot of, what is this going to generate? We start building this thing. Is it generating more need for what type of thing?
And remind me, Chad, we had about a 1.2 million sitting somewhere in a
Yes.
fund to cover this initial area.
Yes.
moving back to our slide, are we trying to talk about taking that price out of that 1.2? Or are we gonna pull that from somewhere else?
No, that'll come somewhere else. And what we're looking at for the construction of this hangar, the engineer, it's gonna be out of general fund. So, what will happen there is that the rent that we create off of that will go through the airport fund into debt service to pay off the general fund. And what we're hoping for is about a 10 to 15-year turnaround on debt service.
Okay, go back to your dollar slide. Anybody have any questions or thoughts or comments now about any part of the project or about the numbers?
We had our city engineering staff review these two to see if they're in the ballpark with what they're seeing for other projects right now, and they felt as that was representative of what they're seeing. The barge isn't taking advantage or anything like that.
I move that we approve this work authorization for barge. As
Second.
requested.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? If not, can you call the roll?
Shelby Hunting,
Aye.
Shannon Lowry, Paul Myers,
Aye.
Drew Shelley,
Aye.
Steve Weldon.
Aye. Thank y'all. All right, Chad.
All right, so in the next part of this is to give you a kind of a heads up, an overview of what we've been negotiating with a company that we've been talking to is called Concierge. They're a charter company that currently operates 3 aircraft, 2 jets, and a PC-12. I think I've given you some information there as to how many pilots they have in their they deploy mechanics and dispatchers. The owner and operator of this is John Brannon. He purchased a 135 operation out of Lexington, and they are now in the process of moving out of Lexington and finding a home. They have a hangar in Lewisburg, is that correct? And it made sense that I think they were looking for something bigger to allow them to grow. And most of their pilots are from this area, from Murfreesboro, came through MTSU. I think that may be true of dispatchers and other things like that. He's looking for a base. And so we began this conversation with him probably this last fall and have been working towards some sort of letter of intent. And that's what we're here to talk to you about. So I've kind of outlined the different parts, the different key elements of that letter of intent to go over with you and see if there's anything that you disagreed with, agreed, or anything like that, so that we can move forward with this. First of all, we started out with what size of hangar you need. And so we've kind of talked about that size, 100 by 150, 3,000 square feet of office space. Just to keep this in mind, Mike Jones is 1,000 square feet. So if you're talking about several dispatchers that are working in that building and some other folks in that office, you can see where, and with his growth forecasted, where he would need more office space than what Mike Jones is currently doing in his hangar. So we were working off this 4.6 million right here for the hangar, office, taxiway, and apron. And so when we just look at the hangar and apron and parking, you're really talking about 3.8. So we've got some wiggle room there as we move forward. One of the things that we don't know about is the door. That is the hangar door is something that has increased in size. So we're trying to make up for some room in there for that item, because we were probably looking at a kind of a situation like Mike Jones where we use a large bifold electric or something similar to that. But probably be a sliding door like what you see at TDK, given the width of that door. And here's an example of something that Barge did not too long ago. So I just give you kind of an idea of what a hangar could look like. Here's a office area. And the inside has some heat in there, circulation of air. It has a sprinkler system similar to what we would need to put in there with the cameras. We're not talking about doing any epoxy or anything like that. The customer would have to do that if they wanted to do that. Otherwise, we just do a polished floor and insulation. Probably do something similar on the inside of bringing the, just put some wall up there to protect the insulation a certain height. But basic hangar moving forward for them and their needs. That's pretty much a good description of what that hangar looks like.
Where is that door gonna face that new
So,
ramp?
yeah, I could go back to that. When we were talking to John, this door would be
North,
facing
right?
east.
So
So,
east, I guess.
yeah, so you'd have the morning
Oh, yeah, you're
sun,
right, you're right.
morning sun coming into him and heating things up, which he liked as compared to that one. I guess we always kind of talked about that one, but when we actually talked about which way the sun was coming, we liked that option.
You told the height. Did you say the width of the door?
We'd be looking at 100 and whatever it takes for the pockets, so I could see that being.
Yeah.
So you're gonna do that pocket style, like,
If we do a sliding door, then we'll have to have the pockets. I'm assuming that he's probably gonna want a sliding door because of the bifold, we're gonna lose a couple feet.
right,
So probably a motorized sliding door, and on 150, it's probably 130.
We have a little room for this whole thing
Maybe
to
not,
shift a little
but-
bit. We're
yeah.
working within the boundary of the Park and Rec, what property they still own, to stay out of that. And then we've got this line right here that keeps us out of the taxiway safety area. So we've got a little room for this whole thing to kind of shift, move. If we have to put door pockets or they extend out or whatever, we've got that room to do that.
and what are you proposing? That's I'm looking at the little, kind of looks like barber poles. That's the handicap spaces, but
Yes.
what are you gonna do for controlled access across that parking ramp area?
So this will be open similar to what TDK is, and controlled access will occur here. There'll be fence that goes from this fence to that. And they would have access to this to get around, and we may bring in something here as we'll still have some sort of road here. There might be another access control here that would allow them to come on. There
And at
may
the
be-
north end, you'd have to have a fence across the two.
Yes, yes.
We had
Yeah.
talked about putting a gate there, but we're just gonna eat up so much parking.
Yeah.
That it's going to, and then we also talked that there may be a roll-up door on the hangars, on the backside of the hangar with access out to the street anyway.
Right.
So we kind of talked around that several different ways.
Are you gonna have a pedestrian gate in that fence?
Yeah, we'll have a pedestrian gate for sure.
Yeah, I think you would be probably well served to have some kind of a, 16-foot, 18-foot wide, 12, 14-foot tall, so that if you even had to have a semi back up to the back of that building, you could.
And we've kind of preliminary scoped it. There'll be some, a little bit more finer discussion before we get too far down the road.
We'll have to coordinate too with concierge, because they're gonna be responsible for doing the interior of the office. We're just gonna give them the shell, coordinate where the restroom locations are and things like that. There'll also be some coordination, inside the hangar for where the pipes are for the pneumatic tools and different things like that, water, all that kind of stuff will be coordinated through them.
And we may be doing that for them. Just keep it clean for them and the project.
Your fire suppression will be what in the hangar?
Similar to what we have in both TDK and Mike Jones. So we're not talking about a foam system. We can't support that. And that seems to be working pretty well for us. Seed Bench is the name of the engineer, so they'll get with Barge on. We're looking at a term right now of 20 years with two 10-year options, so a pretty long lease. Right now, we're talking about rent before we get bids in, just based on our estimates of about $22,000 per month. Rent adjustment is 3%. It'll start after the first 5 years. There was quite a bit of discussion about this first 5 years. This gives Concierge a time to invest in their company. They're wanting to buy some more aircraft. This also puts us through that period where we have MTSU relocating, we have a tower going up and all those discussions and some other things happening here that kind of give us a pause until some of these things all work out. The fuel agreement, part of part of these discussions here, and he's here to help through this discussion with you as well. Part of this was the fuel agreement. We wanted to make sure that they were purchasing their fuel here. So there's a purchase of a minimum purchase of about 45,000 gallons per year. So each year that turns over, we worked on the into plane rate. So when we drive the truck out there, we put the fuel into plane. There's a 10-cent discount that we're going to offer them. And then for the first 45,000 gallons, if they go over 45,000 gallons during that first year, or during that year, there'll be another 10 cents added to anything after 44,001 gallons after that. But again, each year they have to, the clock starts over. We're talking about carrying over like 10% over. If they fall short, then they have to pay for that fuel at $1 per gallon for the fuel that they did not purchase.
Chad, what are you, how are you handling the renewal options? Is that just a continuation of 3% or how's the base rent handled?
That'll be adjusted 3% each year after the first 5 for that. And then the next 10, at the options, it's a mutual.
The prevailing market rate or something? Is that negotiated at the time?
What we've talked about is a mutual agreement to extend, so you end up negotiating those.
That's better than continuing at 3% in my opinion. Just figure out a prevailing market rate and negotiate it.
Because a lot could happen in 20 years.
That's right. That's right.
What's his capacity, Chad, on his, I guess, once he gets this thing up and going, what does he hope to have as far as plane? What's his total number of planes?
He was showing another 2 or 3 this year and then getting it up to 10 or 12 in the next 5 years. And I think additional several others in the next 10-year period. So he's talking about a great deal. Now, they wouldn't all be based here. What he's describing for us is in the charter business is that those aircraft are out. And when, I kind of in my layman's mind thought they always kind of come and go from Murfreesboro, but what happens, what he was describing for us, and this is the importance of his dispatchers and the role that they play in the company, is when they're down to Florida, let's say they take somebody down to Destin, while they're down there, instead of just deadheading back to Murfreesboro, they go into this system of charter needs, and there's another couple that needs a Destin to Denver or something like that. Well, they're there. They pick up that road, that customer, and while they're in Denver, then they see if there's something else nearby. And they eventually, after time is up on that aircraft, then it comes back here for maintenance. So we may not see aircraft here all the time, but as they come in and out for maintenance, or if they are doing charter service out of Middle Tennessee, that's when we'll see their aircraft here. So it's not like he needs a lot of RAM space or anything like that. He'd rather see those aircraft all over the place and working than to be here. So there are discussions that that if we get a good price on this hangar, what would it be if we did 2 and do the mirror? And that would really set him up for the next 5 years, next 10 years of that. But that is a big discussion to have. We're hoping that City Council will allow us to do like it as an alternate, to the thing. But those are discussions that we're having right now just to finance the first one, let alone the second.
Benson, of the type of aircraft that he's discussing, how many can he get in that hangar?
3 or 4. It just depends, because he's got some, lattice, and they can kind of fit in between something else. So that's one of the reasons we went wider to the 150. was, So I'm assuming, just based on what he's talking about fleet-wise now, probably 4 max. With some room to work around them.
There's a certain series of Cessna jet that he's kind of
525, but
And only just because you're on the slide, my last question, I guess, is how did y'all determine this 45,000 gallon number?
Brad, where did we come up with 45?
Well, we were looking at a certain rent amount and then used the gas calculation backwards to get it. Come up with a number. Hit our goals.
Just last year alone, even without him being based here, but just because he's got his employees here, whatever, they've purchased around 11,000 gallons without even being here. TDK was around 30,000, and they're quite busy, so that kind of tells you, kind of gives you an impression of where they're at without even really being here. They're already purchasing a great deal.
And he's good with the dollar penalty if he doesn't make that?
Well, this is something that we're still negotiating out, but we're really close on this one.
Based on your current LOI, what's the city's, with regard to repairs and maintenance, what's the responsibility?
So we're responsible for all the building repairs, roofs, air conditioning, those mechanical parts of it, keeping the door operating, things like that. He has to, maintain light bulbs and plumbing, simple plumbing things.
Interesting. Lease agreement, this is an LOI, so it's not
Yeah.
binding, but on a lease agreement, we'll go in and try to find,
Yeah, it
you
seems,
know, it's the worst thing in the world. Capital expenses and where you draw that line.
sure, exterior walls, roof and foundation for the city, and then, in utility to the point of entry, but really I would see plate glass, HVACs, all of that, especially on a 40-year potential deal, that's what should be on the tenant, but yeah, we're still in the LOI phase, but I think that's important to consider.
Yeah, here's his currently 27 full-time and 2 part-time employees over the next 5 years. 75 employees, 55 pilots, 8 maintenance personnel, 6 dispatchers, and 6 finance administrators. So I kind of see this as an interested party that is operating in the area, wanting to be in the area. And this kind of opens up this area on the north end of the ramp to this more corporate type activity that we're looking forward to come in during this transition period. The other thing is we felt like once we start to build hangars, there'll be more interest generated to see what's happening here. And hopefully with these revenues coming in, these new sources of revenues, that will assist us in the long run to build the T hangars and address those things as well. So while I talk corporate in the long run, that'll only help us pay for other things such as T hangars to address that list as well. Do you have any other questions? Again, so just to give you kind of look down the future, what this means is what I'm looking for today is just your approval of the direction we're going. We're gonna hopefully get this LOI executed. That will go to city council for the mayor's signature. Meanwhile, Barge is going to be working on a design of a hangar. It'll go up for bid. We'll have bids in hand, a construction schedule in hand. That will all be fed into the actual lease agreement. So you'll see bids, you'll see a schedule, you'll see an actual lease agreement then come before you as we move forward. Alternatively, if we don't come to an agreement with this hangar would probably go out for advertisement for space available and see what we get. And the same would happen to the second hangar as well. So that kind of keeps you know what's coming down the road on this.
I have a question of ignorance, which I have a lot of those. What happens when an operator like this, should they fail or not be able to fulfill their term? I know that'll be in the lease, but it's not appropriate for it to be here. I just want to understand more. How do we think through that? And should somebody not be able to fulfill their side of the lease like this?
And that is outlined in the lease agreement. From the city standpoint, we feel in a position that there's enough demand right now that there shouldn't be a long turnaround to bring somebody in that would want to operate out of this, especially as we continue to make improvements to the airport that would make it more attractive to them. Craig can kind of answer the legal side of what happens to.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have standard remedies and all. Clear bankruptcy.
Yeah, it just
I'm sure
reverts to
all-
the
it's
city
gotta
and-
work through the bankruptcy court, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the end of the day, though, the airport has a hangar.
That's the one clean thing too, is that this, like Craig said, this is the city's hangar. It's not they have this lease and they're building the hangar and then it goes through some sort of bankruptcy or something like that. I could see where that could get messed.
Get really tangled up.
Yeah.
I can ask one more question. I know it's a little different with hangars, but you know, a lot of stuff we're seeing in the market lately has been 4% annual increases because inflation's changed. I don't know how far along in the negotiations you are, if that's something you've already established, but I don't know if there's a way to try to push back on 3% or tie it to an index, but no less than 3%.
That was a part of our negotiations and we started out with the 4% because that's what we've been doing with all the commercial operators. And then as we looked at historically, we've been kind of around the 3. He wanted 2, so 3 kind of was the middle that we. Kind of came to on that.
We looked at. Keep that in the last 10 years, the average is. That's southeast region. So
Yeah. It's changed now.
They wanted less, they wanted tie, they wanted all kinds of things, and we said, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we entertain a motion to approve the LOI? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, letter of intent.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Shelby Hunting. Shannon Lowry.
Aye.
Paul Myers,
Aye.
Drew Shelley,
Aye.
Steve Walter.
Aye. All right, thank you. Chad, what else do we have on the agenda?
We really don't have anything. I just wanted to remind you of upcoming events and meetings. July 21st will be our next meeting. Hopefully we'll have the bids perhaps in hand by then. If not, we'll soon have those. We'll have more information about the approach mitigation. We had a nice meeting today. Yeah, go ahead.
That's what you were not here last time, so I wanted to kind of give you an update of where we are on that. We had a call this morning with Eva with LT something shop now. Yeah, and so we're also talking with legal about going ahead and starting to kind of look at what it's going to look like for the easements that we're going to need in phase 2. So as we start wrapping up environmental, we started through the phase of talking to everyone, and then we'll be looking at getting into phase 2, which will be appraisals, review appraisals, trying to get easements on the properties that we don't have, and the front yard easements of the, what do we say, 8 properties on Harold Lane that we just have, I guess, from the back door to the street is what we're gonna be needing there. Once we get all those worked out, which is not gonna be that easy, but once we get that worked out, then we'll be ready to go in and start doing our clearing. So that'll be phase 3, but we're moving along. What we will start doing now is the public communication process and
Okay.
start working on that.
So, and just to again update you where we saw a lot of dots all over south of the airport. What Barge has been able to do now is really dive into all of that and see what do we need to get that threshold moved back. And instead of 70 properties, we're looking somewhere in that 20 to 30 range. So that really brings that closer to Northfield, maybe extending past Northfield. But I think in your mind, instead of having all these dots of properties that we're gonna have to get easements to or clarifications or whatever, is you'll see that trapezoid that is the approach, and it's some place where we need to get that property, just draw a line, and we're gonna be purchasing, negotiating those easements in that area, in that trapezoid. So that will take care of us not only for now, but in the future. So really, we now understand the scope of the project, how far back and all that we have to go through. The coordination today was, what is our legal department going to do? What is WD Shock? And WD Shock's going to be that face out there between us and the neighbor to negotiate and all that, communicate. And our city legal department, and Joe, you can correct me, but we're going to be looking up the titles and helping with the review of easements and things like that. And there'll be a lot of appraisals going on if we're going to follow the FAA requirements to appraisals and all that. So it's going to be a long process, but I think we've got our assignments kind of now cleared out. We have some public involvement that'll come in phase one right here. Where WD Shock will be calling in the neighbors that are going to be impacted by this. And then phase two will be where we really get into starting to look up the properties, going through their history, mortgage companies, all that in contact. So phase two will be all in grouping. And this is all kind of moving at the same time with your environmental assessment, which also requires public involvement as well. So that's all kind of moving at the same time.
Exciting.
Um,
Thanks, Spence.
So July 21st through the 27th is the EAA venture. We're going to do a July 10th, I think it is before the EAA. We'll do the EAA meeting, and we're going to do a little cookout for the customers and all that. There's a lot of them that are going to be out of the T hangers that are going to be meeting at that to go up to Oshkosh. And so we'll invite everybody to that meeting or prior to the meeting if they want to stop by and get some food and things like that. It's been a popular meeting in the past. July 30th, we'll start that getting together the next airport consultant advertisement, going through that process because we're now up on that 5-year time period on that. And you can see the rest of the things. We added Santa is coming in November. So that's another little fun one for public involvement. Any questions or anything?
Anybody else have any comments, questions? If not, we'll stand adjourned.